Welcome to Food and Facilities, an online show for West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine. Our goal is to cultivate knowledge to feed the world by focusing our quarterly trade issues on safety, compliance, and innovation within manufacturing, agriculture, food processing, and food and beverage industries. In this episode, we will be discussing farming's fairer future with LaKeishia Martin of African American Farmers of California, the complexities of cannabis contracts and federal enforcement with Robert Selna of Selna Partners LLP, and forage for the food economy with Isa Robbins of Forage Kitchen. Welcome to Food and Facilities. I'm your host, the Marketing Director of West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine, Tara Sweeney, and today we'll be discussing farming's fairer future with African American Farmers of California, LaKeishia Martin, cannabis contracts and federal enforcement with Robert Selna of Selna Partners LLP, and forage for the food economy with Forage Kitchen's Isa Robbins. Make sure to subscribe to West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine, now planting to processing, at wcismag.com/subscribe, and you can check out our advertisement options at wcismag.com/advertise for all things manufacturing, food and beverage, food processing, and agriculture. And my first guest today is LaKeishia Martin. She's the Vice President of African American Farmers of California, and you can reach her at africanamericanfarmersofca@gmail.com. LaKeishia?
Hi, everybody. Tara, thank you for having us as an organization. I am currently the Vice President of African American Farmers. African American Farmers was founded in 1997 by our current president, Mr. Will Scott. The sole mission of African American Farmers is to increase the awareness of, within the African American community about resources when it comes to farming, and more or less get back into the groove of things and how it relates to our culture.
And you do things like that by training growers and people in the community that are interested in becoming growers?
Yes. So our current group of African American farmers, not everybody is a farmer. Me personally, I'm not a farmer, but we are working on getting more people involved in the agriculture industry. As you guys are aware, the people of color there's not a dominant effect in the ag industry, but we are definitely in tune with the concept of consuming healthy things. So we are willing and wanting to provide newcoming farmers and established farmers with the resources to learn the concepts of farming and to hone in on different skills that they're not necessarily aware of.
And you have monthly meetings at the nearby Kearney Park, is that correct?
Yes, so we do meet every second Thursday of the month, and we're kind of like in a weird position because we were meeting outside, practicing social distancing and things like that due to the weather. But as the weather is changing, our location will change as well. But we do meet every second Thursday of the month at 5:30. And our demonstration site, we have a 16-acre demonstration site that is located at the intersection of Fair and California. So if you just follow the palm trees down California, you'll be able to find it. And it is located right behind Kearney Park.
And if organizations wanted to collaborate with you, what kinds of equipment or resources could they provide you with?
Honestly, we are open to a lot of things. Our demonstration site, we currently were granted what we would call the Healthy Soils Grant. So our goal for this year is the remaining of the year and for the years coming is to revamp that demonstration site. So we are very open to anything, whether it's washing facilities, tractors, any type of farming equipment. That's something that we're always wanting and always welcoming.
And prior to COVID, you participated in a CSA and farmers market in Oakland?
Yes. So a lot of our farmers, they are bringing their produce, they're obviously harvesting their produce and then taking it to different areas as it is requested.
And what are some new projects that you've been working on along with Healthy Soils?
At this point, we are solely focusing on getting the organization more known. We've been honing in on the concept of integrating technology like social media, getting the website and everything going. I feel like, as we've all kind of stated, is that 2020 has been our opportunity for growth. We've had our African American Farmers Conference in February, and so we were able to kind of, lay out our plans. And as of lately, we've been putting those into action. So hopefully, as we progress in lieu of the Healthy Soils grant, we'll be able to demonstrate all the progress that we have been able to do over the last year.
And is there anything else that you'd like to share about your organization?
The biggest thing that I would say is that we are always wanting and welcoming more members. If you are somebody who has resources and you would like to share them with us, whether it's funding or if it's just sources of information about a new variety of a seed or something, we're always welcoming those things. We're a group that is wanting to learn and wanting to give back to our community, and we ask that the community also keeps us in mind as well.
And then if they wanted to reach out and connect with you, how would they reach you?
The greatest way to connect with us is utilizing our Facebook page. You guys can all follow us at African American Farmers of California. And California is spelled all the way out. Or you can email me, and the emails come directly to me at African American Farmers of California African American Farmers of California CA@gmail.com. And I will respond that way. Or you can give us on the Facebook page, there's also a phone number as well.
Well, thank you for taking time with me today, LaKeishia. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that's it. Thank you for having us.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Make sure to reach out to the Central California Virtual Facilities Expo at fenc.facilitiesexpo.com. They're going to have virtual exhibits, on-demand conferences, contests, and offers, and it's free to attend. It will be November 18th and 19th of this year, and it will be all virtual. You can reach out to George Runkle, GRUNCKEL, at facilitiesexpo.com, or give him a call at 925-309-9043. Or you can reach out to Lisa Nagel, LNAGLE, at facilitiesexpo.com, or give her a call at 408-829-5111. And my second guest is Robert Selna of Selna Partners to discuss the complexities of cannabis contracts for California and the federal level. Hi, Robert. Can you give a little background about yourself and Selna Partners for our new listeners and our previous listeners? Just give them a little reminder.
Sure thing. My name is Robert Selna. I'm a founding partner in Selna Partners LLP, which is an Oakland, California-based serves clients statewide, all the way from Humboldt County to Santa Barbara County. We started our firm in April, actually. My brother and I both come from a larger law firm experience and decided we wanted to strike out on our own and do something where we would work sort of on a less bureaucratic and corporate scale. We're a business firm, general business firm, but we focus primarily on three things. One is real estate, cannabis, and hemp, and we also are a litigation firm. So within the context of real estate, cannabis or hemp industry, in other forms of commercial litigation. My brother's a long-term litigator. I'm a long-term transactional attorney. So we do all kinds of business contracts and any kind of transaction you can imagine, but we highlight those things because we have a lot of expertise in those areas.
And so you contributed an article for us in our October to December. Can you give us a little background on federal regulations for cannabis and the Controlled Substance Act?
There's a split in the legality of commercial cannabis in the United States. It's been that way for a couple of years now. On the federal level, cannabis in any form is illegal and it's controlled by the Controlled Substances Act, which was passed in the 1970s. And the Controlled Substances Act prohibits the manufacture, importation, possession, use, and distribution of marijuana. So basically anything involving marijuana is illegal. The Controlled Substances Act rates different drugs for their potential harm and addiction. And the marijuana is listed as a Schedule 1 controlled substance, which implies that it has a very high level of potential for addiction and no medical value, according to the federal government. I think most would agree that that's a fairly outdated perspective on quote unquote marijuana. What used to be known as marijuana is called cannabis, and cannabis is actually a scientific term for the plant that cannabis is derived from. Marijuana or cannabis in any form really is still illegal at the level of the federal government. But what's happened since really the mid-90s in California and other places since then is that medical marijuana was legalized for patients and caregivers in California. Following actually Washington and Oregon, which had a legalized quote unquote recreational or adult use in 2016 timeframe. California voters passed Proposition 64, a significant majority, and Proposition 64 allows for non-medical, meaning simply recreational, like alcohol use of cannabis, and that passed in 2016. And then the state government worked on to regulate the commercial cannabis, both recreational and medical commercial cannabis industries in California. So since January 2018, commercial cannabis in all forms, medical and recreational, have been legal in California. That requires an asterisk. There are 540 jurisdictions in California, meaning counties and cities, and out of those, only a third have permitted commercial cannabis. And what I mean by that is possession of an ounce of cannabis is legal statewide, and no jurisdiction can prohibit a person over the age of 21 from having cannabis in their possession or growing a certain amount of cannabis at their home or property. But the state left it up to cities and counties to decide whether they would permit commercial cannabis. And by that, I mean commercial cultivation of cannabis for sale, the processing and manufacturing of cannabis products for sale, distribution, and retail sales. And so while voters passed Proposition 64 and we've had legal commercial cannabis in the state for 2 years, the state laws left it up to local jurisdictions to really decide how large an industry it would be. And so far, it's not as large, nowhere near as large as it could be, because as I say, only approximately a third of the 540 jurisdictions are allowing it. That's starting to change very slowly, and you'll read about new jurisdictions coming on and having some commercial cannabis permitting regulations. And sometimes it's the Board of Supervisors that decides to draft an ordinance to legalize commercial cannabis. Sometimes it's put to the voters. It just depends. But as time goes on, we'll see more of those jurisdictions coming along. It's likely we will. Many that haven't allowed commercial cannabis to this point have been concerned about things like safety, odor control, negative influence on sort of, society generally, which are really concerns that are generated from cannabis having been an illegal substance and just having that cloud hanging over the industry as a once illegal product and a once illegal industry has made some jurisdictions hesitant to legalize it. The state of California, has put in a very lengthy list of regulations for cultivating cannabis, a very strict and robust track and trace system. So the origins of every ounce of marijuana are known and tracked through a system, restricted from using pesticides and other very stringent sort of industry regulations that you'd expect out of any other industry. Not just the cultivation, but also the manufacturing processes and what chemicals and details go into the manufacturing process. It also regulates the distribution process of moving cannabis products and cultivated cannabis around the state. All those regulations live at the state agencies, the Bureau of Cannabis Control, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, the Public Health, depending on which cannabis product you're talking about. And then the regulations at the lower level, the local level, are zoning regulations and land use regulations about where cannabis businesses can locate and the different operational rules and requirements they have on them when they're operating in a county or a city. And that's really how I became involved in representing cannabis companies, was the zoning and the real estate aspects.
And the differences in the federal, state, and even municipalities affects how cannabis companies and businesses can actually receive funding.
How they can do everything in business. I mean, there is not another business out there today that is illegal on the federal level, yet legal on the state level, right? There aren't any other businesses that fit into that category. So cannabis is unique that way. And in fact, there are massive business inconveniences having to do with the federal prohibition. One is taxes, because cannabis is illegal under the Controlled Substances Act. Cannabis businesses, even in legal states, cannot take standard business deductions from their businesses, which is what helps most businesses in the country balance their books, right? The second really big thing is the lack of availability of standard commercial banking, because standard commercial banking is regulated by the federal government. And so if you have an illegal enterprise and you're trying to have a bank account to just run the basics of your business, pay your vendors, pay your employees, put money in the bank, technically you cannot get a commercial banking relationship under federal law. Interestingly, the Treasury Department and Congress have tried to make commercial banking available to the legal cannabis industry by relaxing the rules that the Treasury Department imposes on illegal businesses. So basically what the Treasury Department has said, if you're a bank and you want to serve the cannabis industry, you won't be prosecuted if you follow these rules. Problem is that the rules are pretty complex and they require banks to spend a lot of money reporting by banks of their cannabis customers, which nobody likes. The bottom line is there's about 300 or 400 banks and credit unions in the entire United States that are serving cannabis companies. So the lack of commercial banking is a public safety risk, really, for everybody involved, and is a significant handicap for businesses who are exchanging a lot of money, particularly if they have a retail enterprise or a distribution arm of their business. And that's really at the heart of the article I wrote, was about my clients' difficulty in getting a banking relationship and therefore seeking a banking relationship with a less conventional financial services company that was, it turns out, not regulated really by anybody. So there are collateral effects that really impair business due to this banking issue, and my clients were just one example of that.
That company that was trying to take advantage of your clients were trying to use the legality defense?
Because they couldn't get a standard commercial banking relationship to serve their business in California, they were introduced to a business that promoted itself as essentially being a payment services company. What in Washington is called a money exchanger, where if you're a business, you give this company your funds, they put it in their own accounts or accounts of other banks. And then when you ask them to make payments to your employees or your vendors, the state in our case for taxes, they hold on to the money and then they make the payment. My clients were using this company. It's a Seattle-based company. And then after a few months, the payments were requested by my client to pay employees, and they would show up late after payroll was due. Months would go by before they paid vendors. And in the most egregious example, the financial services company claimed to have paid the state of California $1.2 million in taxes. And the state taxing authority confirmed that they had never received the money. My client said, hey, what's going on? You know, your payments are always late or you don't make them. And by the way, there's $1.2 million missing here that the state of California says it didn't get, and we're going to be penalized for that because if you don't pay your taxes on time, you incur penalties. Right? Ultimately, my client said, we don't want to have a relationship with you anymore. First of all, tell us where the 1.2 million is, and then we want the rest of our money back. He just ignored the request for proof, ignored the request for returning the money, doesn't claim they don't have the money, just won't give it back. Won't end the relationship. You know, this went on for a few months, and my client felt like their hands were tied. Like, what are we supposed to do? This is our capital account. This is how we pay people. This is how we function as a business. And again, if cannabis wasn't illegal under federal law, these guys would have no problem doing all these things because they'd be able to get a standard Wells Fargo account or Bank of America account. And I want to emphasize that my clients are fully compliant and regulated in California and in Oakland and in the other cities where they operate, which are cities all over the state. They're as compliant as you can get. They're not doing anything wrong under California law. They're simply in this dilemma because of this split between federal and state law to do. So they asked me for help, and the options were filing in state court in Alameda County and filing in state court in Washington or filing in federal court in one of those two places. And at the time, because of the coronavirus, Alameda County Superior was essentially shut down and not taking on new cases. And in addition, federal court has some benefits. The judges have lifetime appointments, so they're not up for election. They're not in political positions. The standard for evidence of experts is higher in federal court than it is in state court. And in some ways, we just felt like we'd get a quicker resolution from a sort of higher level of court. Enforcing a contract that involves a cannabis company, and this is really the sort of the focus of my article, the trick to enforcing a contract in federal court that involves a cannabis business is that cannabis is illegal under federal law. So can federal courts enforce a contract that involves a quote unquote illegal business? Whether that business is legal in a state or not, it's still considered illegal under federal law. Back to what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. I did the research on the cases, and it turns out that in fact, federal courts can indeed hear contract cases and enforce contracts, even if the contracting parties or the subject of the contract is an illegal, quote unquote, illegal enterprise. And the test they apply to do that is, will we be furthering illegal conduct by enforcing this contract? Will we be compelling more illegal activity by enforcing this? And for those who might think, well, why would the federal courts even do this? There is an interest from the federal courts and federal law in enforcing contracts. So that's sort of the competing interest, right? They don't want contracting parties to be able to get out of contracts, even if they're over an illegal enterprise, because that really undermines certainty in business transactions and creates a separate criminal problem, right? Which is fraud or breach of contract running rampant if the federal court doesn't enforce some illegal contracts, if it can do so in its analysis. We knew that we would have to get over this question, this hurdle of whether a federal court can enforce a contract that involves a cannabis company, right? And as I said, the case law shows, yes, they can. And then the next level of analysis you have to go to is the remedy we're asking for when we're asking for enforcement of the contract, is that going to force the court to compel illegal conduct going forward? And there are a number of cases on this that I list in my article, and I'll just give a couple of examples from that. There was one that involved an individual whose medical marijuana plants were stolen, and they wanted their insurance company, USAA, to replace the medical marijuana plants that were, or give them money to buy the medical marijuana plants that were stolen. And the court said, we can't do that, because what that's going to mean is we're going to give you the money, the insurance company is going to give you the money, and then you're going to go buy marijuana. And that violates the Controlled Substances Act, as I said at the beginning, because possession and purchase of marijuana is illegal under the Controlled Substances Act. So that was one example. There are a few insurance cases like that, where they say, no, you're asking us to replace something, or you're asking us to pay for something that is inherently illegal. In contrast to that, courts have found instances in which individuals or investment firms have loaned money to cannabis companies to do certain things like invest in real estate or pay back loans. And so they've loaned cannabis companies money with an interest rate on a promissory note. And courts have said, well, if we require the cannabis company to pay back the lender, is that going to further illegal conduct? And in a few cases, the courts have concluded, no, that's not going to further illegal conduct, so we can enforce that promissory note on that loan that was given to the cannabis company to pay back other lenders or buy real estate, things like that. Another case in the Northern District of California where we filed our lawsuit was two companies that consulted with cannabis companies. One of them did marketing, the other one did hydroponics or something like that. But inherently, those companies themselves were not illegal, quote unquote, illegal companies. And enforcing the contracts between the two of them would not further illegal conduct. And the court enforced that contract. And really where the courts have been getting their direction on this is from cases that aren't cannabis cases, but just general business cases that have an illegal element to them. And in those cases, the courts really talk about, we don't want to encourage people to take advantage of each other in transactions. And so if there's, a significant amount of harm to a company that is quote unquote doing something illegal, but the harm they're going to suffer by this other party getting out of this contract based on this illegality defense is really high. We want to enforce that contract in order to protect these parties in good faith entered a transaction. So we think when we apply the facts of our case to these cases that have come before us, yes, we represent a company that under federal law is doing something illegal, but what we're asking for is for our money to be returned and or for the money exchange company, the financial services company, to pay taxes to the state of California, or pay our vendors, or pay our employees, or simply return the money. And we don't believe any of those things further illegal conduct. That's why we believe that we'll be able to succeed in federal court in our case, despite the fact that we represent a cannabis company. Now, the financial services defense to all of this has been, hey, court, you can't even hear this case. This is an illegal company. And in fact, our company may be illegal because it's the financial services company saying we may even be illegal. So you may be enforcing a contract between two illegal companies. We'll see what happens. We're still waiting for some important rulings in this case. But when you think about that concept and why a court wouldn't like it, is it somebody coming into court and saying, hey, we contracted with an illegal company, we may be illegal, and that's why you can't hear this case. And courts, would understandably say, wait a minute, you're saying you're allowed to get out of a contract you signed because you're an illegal company and you're coming in and telling the federal court that? We're not comfortable with that. So we're going to analyze this in a way that, if at all possible, we can enforce this contract, we will. One of the reasons we decided to file in federal court was we thought that given the facts of our case, we could overcome this quote unquote illegality defense.
Can you give our listeners a way to contact you and reach out if they would like to have your services?
Absolutely. The name of the firm, again, is Selna, S-E-L-N, as in Navy, A, Selna Partners, LLP, and we're in Oakland, California. And my email address is robert@selnapartners.com. And the best phone number for me is 415-601-5385. And as I said, we talked a lot about cannabis today, understandably, because that's what my article is about. But we represent a number of different agricultural industries and enterprises throughout California. And we handle standard real estate transactions, and we work on permitting and land use and development for development projects of all kinds. So we do everything in the real estate realm. We just so happen to have gotten into cannabis and hemp based on the real estate angle, and we litigate. So we can help people with a lot of different things in California. But thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Make sure to reach out to our sponsor, Fine Print Plus. They're your source for printing, packing, and promotion. And if you reach out, you can get 500 free business cards with purchase for new customers. They do graphic design, prints and copies, custom apparel, promotional items, parcel service, and now they have a will call and delivery service. You can give them a call at 559-237-4747. Give them an email at graphics@fineprintplus.com or request a quote at their website, www.fineprintplus.com/quote. And another one of our sponsors is Protect Coatings. They do seamless floor and wall systems. They are located in Central California, the Central Coast, and Northern California. They have non-slip, antimicrobial, chemical-resistant, durable, and decorative floor coatings. Make sure to give them a call at their Central California location at 559-323-8147 or their Central Coast location 803-455-3743 or their Northern California location 707-340-4799. And here is a moment of silence for our Black Lives Matter community.